So, what is a specialist? Winx fans tend to take it for granted, but when you speak to normal people and you tell them about the three magic schools at the series' forefront, note the confusion in their eyes when you mention how the third school, Red Fountain, teaches not wizards, but specialists? What do they specialize in? Dating? Well, yes. Winx Club is quite unconventional in terms of world building, and the specialists are a prime example. With all their tools and technology, they're arguably the strongest reminder of the show's sci-fi space opera vibes. But is that enough to justify their inclusion? Are they more than just arm candy for the leading ladies? And where are the magical men? Today, we're going to talk about the specialists. What do they do? Are they worth including? And what does Winx Club do with more conventional roles like sorcerers and wizards? Before we begin, ciao! My name's Thomas, aka the Unicorn of War, and I make videos about whatever the hell I damn well please. Usually it's about animation or games that I'm currently hyperfixated on and overanalyze to an annoying degree, in an aggressively gay way. And if that sounds up your alley, then be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications, because YouTube hates creators. And if you are willing and able, please consider pledging your support for myself and the channel over on Patreon. Patrons get early access videos and scripts, exclusive Patreon-only content, and access to the private Union of War Discord server. Now, without further ado, let the chaos commence. Most of the series takes place in the magic dimension, an endless assortment of worlds that, you guessed it, are all filled with magic. Think Star Wars, but with magical creatures. And gayer. Gay! Everyone born in the magic dimension has magic within them, but not everybody taps into it. For most folks, it's just used for everyday conveniences, like powering their techno-magic phones or devices, or warping reality to make themselves a parking spot on the fly. God, I wish. There are many magic schools and colleges across the magic dimension, but three stand above the rest. The Alphea College for Fairies, the Cloud Tower College for Witches, and the Red Fountain College for Specialists, all found on the planet of Magix, the capital of the magic dimension. Alumni from these colleges will go on to protect all the realms. Though to be real with you, the show only cares about the fairies. Fairies get all their world building fleshed out with an assortment of different transformations, a less flimsy syllabus compared to their counterpart, and a game plan for becoming guardian fairies of their homeworlds. Witches and specialists, meanwhile, get none of that. They're basically just there to provide love interests and conflict. Specialists don't rely on magic like fairies and witches. Instead, they use techno-magic weapons, which, you guessed it again, are advanced technology powered by magic. They primarily use phantoblades, holographic weapons of any kind, and they have a shocking variety, from every kind of sword to bolas and guns, and even Wolverine claws. If you can imagine wielding it, there is a phantoblade equivalent. Again, think lightsabers from Star Wars, but more varied and gayer. The Cinelume dub, which is closest to the original Italian, did confuse me a bit on this initially, since they refer to the Red Fountain students as magicians.
The Red Fountain School for Magicians will gather here.
But it turns out this is a mistranslation. Of course it is. In the original Italian, Farragonda, the headmistress of Alphea, refers to them as Maghi Cavalieri,
E quello dei Maghi Cavalieri di Fonterossa?
which means wizard knights. Though the wizard part is a bit of a misnomer, I'd say they're more magic knights, because really, that's kind of the best way to describe specialists. They're knights, but make it magic. They've got a futuristic fantasy flair. While they can definitely help in combat, especially in the first 3 seasons, the only ones we consider sacred, the specialists are mostly useful through their transportation. They're sci-fi Uber drivers, basically, except I hope they're paid well. Because the magic dimension is filled with different worlds, we have to use either magical items to teleport between them or travel across space in starships. There's a whole system here for the specialists. For simple travel, we've got hoverbikes called Wind Riders. Large starships, meanwhile, are named for birds, such as the hawk, the owl, and the crow. The hawk is the largest of the starships, used for transporting a large number of people. The owl is mid-range, better for dangerous missions that require a bit more agility. And the crow is a single-person fighter ship. In the first 3 seasons, the specialists routinely come in clutch for our transportation needs. If we're in a situation where Stella can't teleport us with her scepter, or we just need a large vehicle for a lot of people, we must star pool, The specialists can take us to other worlds or other parts of the world we're on one of their ships. And they're incredibly useful for missions requiring the whole crew. The specialists also have dragons, because why not? Can you even call yourself a knight if your job doesn't somehow involve a dragon? There are many types of dragons in the franchise, and the Red Fountain ones seem to have a more Eastern influence, being a bit more serpentine in design. You know, they're noodle boys. They're very weird, kind of salamandery. Naturally, each specialist dragon is color-coded, they can breathe fire, and they're good for monster fighting. Please don't make this weird. Oh, also, there's a weird psychic link between the specialists and their dragons. Okay, sure, why not? They've got a few other gadgets that come in handy too, such as bombs or thingies that let you phase through solid matter.
But if I never return, Bloom, I want you to have my wardrobe.
All of this often gets forgotten since the specialists are kept on the back burner, but I would argue that's a good thing, as it keeps them from overshadowing the real stars of the show, the fairies. The specialists aren't here to save the fairies from danger. They're here to provide some backup, make sure their glittery girlies have all they need to save the day. And without them, our lives would be a lot harder, I'm just saying. That said, I do wish the franchise wasn't so cis-normative. Like, if you're a man, you are not going to be a fairy or a witch, and if you're a woman, you're not going to get to be a specialist. And if you're non-binary, you just don't exist, I guess. I always thought I was a hallucination. Personally, I'd like if anyone of any gender could be anything that they like. You know, give us some boy fairies, some lady specialists, some NB witches. So the specialists are pretty neat. They could use a bit more work, but they function well enough and definitely deserve more respect. At least in those first 3 seasons, before they become totally irrelevant and the writing devolves into nonsense. Season 4 is okay sometimes. But what about the wizards or paladins or any of the other magical men of the series? What about them? Are they hot? So that whole thing of Winx Club not really caring if you're not a fairy, that goes doubly so if you are anything other than a witch or a specialist. Wizards are never really defined in the show, and there's not many of them. Aside from Saladin, the headmaster of Red Fountain, and Naboo, they are mostly villains like Valtor or the Black Circle, and other terrible villains of later seasons I refuse to acknowledge. And for the sake of our sanity, let's just assume the terms wizard, sorcerer, and magician are interchangeable. So a lot of this is going to rely on my own interpretation, so please take all this with a grain of salt, and don't get mad at me unless you're going to sit through all the ads. I think the main point of confusion is what, aside from gender, separates a wizard from a witch. And are there any sorceresses? Well, yes, there's one sorceress in the comics that I have not read, but fundamentally, how is their magic different from each other? Witches, like fairies, have unique sources of power. Just like Bloom is the fairy of the dragon flame, Icy is the witch of ice. Look, I didn't come up with this, okay? Darcy is the witch of darkness, and Stormy's the witch of storms. Look, it makes for good branding. Like fairies, witches can do general magic, but for the most part stick to their very specific power source. Wizards, meanwhile, don't really seem to have this. They're more jacks of all trades. Valtor may be made from the dragon flame like Bloom, but he doesn't appear to be the wizard of the dragon flame. Naboo isn't shown to have a specific power source, and neither is Saladin. They may have specific kinds of spells that they like to use, like Naboo often likes to make illusory clones of himself, but he's not the wizard of illusion. The Black Circle each have their own unique power, but I don't think Gantlos having super strength and the ability to make shockwaves is the same as Musa being the fairy of music. I'm assuming that this is, again, to keep the focus on the fairies. Plus, if you keep it vague enough, you can pretty much have your one-off wizard characters do whatever you want without contradicting yourself. And there are colleges for wizards in later seasons and supplemental material, but none with the same prestige as the 3 main schools. Wait, I hear you ask, what about Paladins? To which I respond, do you mean Season 2 Paladins or Season 6 Paladins? Because those are very different. Okay, so for the sweet summer children, Season 5 and onward of Winx Club is corporate fan fiction, to put it nicely. The fandom collectively tends to not consider them canon because Rainbow treats canon like a roadblock to break through for the sake of lazy writing and merchandising tie-ins. In Season 2, we only have one paladin, Professor Avalon. He can do magic, which seems to be incredibly advanced, reciting incantations which presumably use ancient magical languages.
Sphera, Captorans, Striga, Sephorum!
For the most part, his magic seems to be light-based, and he even has retractable angel wings made of light. Ali di luce. Aesthetically, this helps him fit in with all the other holographic magic seen in the show while still carrying a clear angel motif, and also kind of separating him from angel men from other franchises. You know, it's like how the mermaids have fairy wings. So paladins are light-based magic wielders. I would say they're holy knights, but holy would kind of refer to a god, like, you know, Abrahamic god, and as we all know, the true god of the magic dimension is the great dragon herself. Hey, how are you? Well, you know, you catch my drift. But in Season 6, we meet two new paladins, Thorin and Nex, and they're basically just specialists, but in red. Same hoverbikes, same techno-magic weapons. Well, in this case, they're nature-themed weapons. Look, they're just low-budget, generic brand versions of the Phantom Blades, let's be real. They don't even say what school they attend, they don't use magic or have wings, and they're always hanging out with the specialists, so there's no real difference between them. So why call them paladins? Well, the answer for that is Season 6 really doesn't give a shit about, like, literally anything. This is the same season where Musa and Tekna have their bonded pixies replaced by two other random bitches from a spin-off that, like, 12 people watched. And they offer no explanation for this. So, Canon is dead. Rainbow killed her. So let's just ignore these paladins, shall we? But hold on. If Red Fountain teaches specialists, why the fuck is their headmaster a wizard? Okay, that I do not have an answer for. I assume it is to make Saladin more impressive and also to have him be magical so that he's cohesive alongside Farragonda and Griffin. And I suppose Coda Torta being the second in command makes it less egregious since he is a specialist. Maybe we could have avoided this by finding a different name for specialists. 4Kids kept the name, but also calls them heroes. Okay, sure, I guess that's not wrong. And I do kind of dig the cheesiness.
We're only one enchanted forest away from the Red Fountain School for Heroics and Bravery. It's full of punks.
Not that song, though. That's... ooh. But I think Magic Knights would have been the best route here. It makes it a bit clearer at a glance what they do and how they fit into the world of Winx, and also will not confuse normal people when you say it to them. So, yeah, those are the specialists. They've got a bunch of gadgets and gizmos that help us out in a pinch, and they are sort of magical, but not really. But remember that the true magic lies in their handsomeness, specifically Brandon. Brandon is worth all of the specialists. All of them. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this from me, then remember to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications because YouTube, again, hates creators. I'm the Unicorn of War, and as much as I love Winx Club's unique world building, it can be quite the shit show sometimes.